So in this paper by Stephen Price, I found one recurring theme that resonated with me. This idea was summarized by a quote given by Charles Surrey, an Ohio State computer scientist. The frontier of knowledge and computer research offer a glimpse into the future role of the artist. The computer, which handles fantastic amounts of data for processing, brings the artist closer to the scientist. Both can now use the same disciplines and knowledge in different ways. What does this mean for animated films and CGI? At its simplest state, the science would be the programs and softwares used to create the animations, and the art would be the resulting movie. But it's not just that simple. As the technology evolves and the art style changes, things begin to become ambiguous. When we look at things in an abstract manner, things aren't so black and white. Looking at films, animation is used in two ways: creating a film entirely animated and adding CGI to live action films. With fully animated films, artistic value is integral to its creation. Every animated film has a style and aesthetic to appear unique. CGI is more scientific in its execution, in that they are going for more of a realistic approach. They want what they are making to appear like it's real, from the real world. Both have their own merit, and ultimately have a place in the film landscape. At the beginning, these models stood alone, but over time they begin to slowly converge on one another and borrow from one another. Well, let's look at the fully animated example first. When we look at the series Toy Story, first we look at the first one, then the second, and the third. The world appears uniform. The characters all look alike, and at first glance, they appear to be more alike than different. But when you take a closer look, the details begin to emerge. This is where the science begins to creep up on the art. By saying this, I mean before the animation was used to create something outside our world. The toys clearly looked like toys, and they didn't have a lot of polish, and it was clearly an animated toy. But as these films have evolved, they maintain this otherworldly aesthetic, i.e., them being toys, but as well they build upon it and add layers. If we look at the new Toy Story trailer, the shadows are improved, the textures look very real and lifelike, and the movements of the characters are incredibly dynamic and real. I know what you're saying. I thought this style avoided realism. You're right, sort of. The animation styles have developed realism within their film world. Yes, toys don't talk and move on their own, but if they did, this would be what they look like. Inside the created world, the physics are scientifically accurate.
Under the bed.
Nothing. Nothing. I'm sure Andy was just a little excited. That's all. Too much cake and ice cream, I suppose. It's just a mistake.
When you see Woody talking and moving, it makes sense for him to do what he's doing. Your eyes don't disagree with what you're seeing, whereas in the original Toy Story, that wasn't always the case. You see how the science is being introduced further to blur the lines? If you're not convinced, let's look at the CGI in live action films. A perfect example being the live action Disney remakes, like Jungle Book, Lion King, Dumbo, Beauty and the Beast. These Disney films were originally animated in 2D, but with CGI they come to life. At the beginning, when CGI was used in live action films, a lot of its implementation was subtle, as to not seem too ridiculous or outlandish, thus keeping the suspension of disbelief intact. Your eyes didn't argue with what you saw. In the case of Jurassic Park, yes, dinosaurs aren't real, but Spielberg used the CGI sparingly and tactically, almost always accompanying it with some kind of real world prop for the viewers to anchor to. When you saw a raptor attack the kids, sure, you might have seen an establishing shot of an animated raptor walking up or into the building that they were in, but once inside, you'd see a real prop of a claw or a face. Over time, however, the quality of CGI has improved to a point where they seem so real that they can stand alone. something Disney is confident in stating. Simply put, films can make the unreal seem real, where something at the beginning might look odd or stand out, no longer does. Where can we see this today? Thanos in the Avengers Infinity War. Thanos is a fully animated character, one that is the primary antagonist of a franchise that is absurdly popular, the Marvel Universe. With CGI combined with motion capture by Josh Brolin, the character comes to life and on-screen interacts seamlessly with real-world actors. You see every angle of Thanos, up close, down low, see him sweat, you see him bleed, you see him fight, you see him hit, and you believe all of it. The immersion is not compromised even slightly, even though we all know that purple aliens don't exist to our knowledge and that Thanos is in fact CGI. The abstract concepts can now more accurately be depicted, and the science has made the imagination far more deep and believable, just like in the case with Thanos. That's how science and art combine to create something better than their own self. You see, they make artistic style and animation aesthetic more complex and more dense by adding textures, hair, details of that nature to make them look more realistic within their worlds we know that are unrealistic. And on the flip side, art is propped up by science when you can create things that in other circumstances do not exist and you can animate them into the real world with real world people, expanding upon imagination and ideas. That's how science and art combine to create something better than their own self. It's important to state that this idea isn't perfectly utilized all the time. Animated films can still be poorly made, and CGI and live action films can still look horrible. I just look forward to seeing how things improve moving on. In the future, things are looking good. Being able to acknowledge and examine this in films is valuable and ultimately creates another layer for loving films.